Welcome back, y'all. We are a wiki reader where we read Wikipedia pages for you. So today we got a good one, military-wise. We are going to be covering the M777 Howitzer. In case you don't know, it's a cannon, a relatively large cannon that the military uses. And then we're just going to read through this Wikipedia page real quick and cover all the design, whatever else is on here, the variants, services, and the ammunition. So the M777 Howitzer is an American towed 155 millimeter artillery piece in the Howitzer class. It is used by ground forces in Australia, Canada, Colombia, India, Saudi Arabia, which I didn't know Saudi Arabia had these yet from us. I don't know. Ukraine and United States. It was first used in combat during Afghanistan. The M777 Howitzer is manufactured by BAE Systems, BAE Systems, Global Combat Systems Division. Prime contractor is based in Barrow and Furness in England, as well as manufactured and assembly of the titanium structures associated with the components. The final integration and testing of the weapon is undertaken at BAE's facility in Mississippi. That's because they can't fire them over there in the UK. The island is literally basically not big enough to be able to fire these weapon systems on. Depending on the year and the contract, the system packages the 777 has exported with individual costs of $2 million in 2008 and 3.7 in 2017. I'll put a picture of the 777 right here for you to be able to see. Ginormous cannon, basically. Service date is from 2005, continue to own, and is now in the use of the Russian-Ukrainian War, however you want to say it. So it began testing in 1987. The ultra-light field howitzer developed by Vickers Armament Division in UK. Upon taking responsibility for the weapon of the BAE, the Americanized to a larger degree the construction and assembly through the US-based BAE Systems Land Armaments Group. The 777 is now uses about 70% US-built parts, including the gun barrel designated 776, manufactured in New York. The BAE US subcontractors and the related components activity as planned in 2001. And then that just goes into all the subcontractors and who they get it from. So like final test and delivery is in Mississippi. The body assembly is in California. Stabilizers, spades, and trails. So the spades are what digs the gun literally into the ground because the recoil is so much. Sometimes they can get them to dig in themselves. So they'll lay down the spades and then fire it, and the gun will kick back like 6 feet. But the spades go ahead and dig themselves in. But usually the soldiers or Marines, whoever's operating them, will dig the spades in first, and that takes place in Indiana. And then in Illinois, you got the breech operating and load trace system. That's where the round basically goes into it. And then the titanium comes from Ohio. The weight is 4 tons, and the 777 is 41% lighter than the M198 Howitzer, which is what it replaced from the Gulf War and before that in World War II. Dang. It replaces much of the weight reduction due to all of the uses of titanium. This is super light, heavy, strong metal. The gun barrel serves as the towing bar, so it uses the barrel to tow itself and connecting to a ring forged as the projection of the muzzle brake. The 777 can be transported by helicopter due to sling loads and a 137 or C5 Galaxy, or towed by a 2.5 ton or greater payload capacity vehicle such as a LMTV. The minimum gun crew required is 5 compared to previous 9. The normal crew is 8 with a minimal emergency crew, and the rate of fire is decreased. So the members you have operating the weapons system, obviously you can't have such a high firing rate. It's going to be lower just because you don't have as many bodies. So the 777A1 and A2 uses a digital fire control system, FCS, similar to that found on the self-propelled howitzer as a Paladin. Paladin's basically a giant tank with a cannon on it, to provide navigation, pointing, and self-location, allowing it to be put into action quickly. The Canadian 777, in conjunction with the traditional glass and iron sights mounts, uses digital fire control called Digital Gun Management System, DGMS, produced by Leonardo MW, huge government contractor. They have a bunch of subcontractors and subsidiaries, with components of the indirect firing control software suite, the IFCSS, built by the Firepower team and the Canadian Army Land Software Engineers Central. The Leonardo portion of the system, known as the LINAPS, had been proven previously through earlier uses in the British 105 L118 light gun. The 777A2 is maybe combined with the XCal round, which is a 155 GPS guided munition, which allows for accurate fires up to 40 kilometers or 25 miles, so very far away. This almost doubles the area covered by a single battery to about 480 square miles. Testing the proving grounds by the U.S. Army placed 13 of 14 XCal rounds 15 miles within 10 meters of their target, suggesting a circular error probable of 5 meters. So if they were to target in a circular way, they could lessen that. In June 2012, Golf Battery of 2nd Battalion, 11th Marines out of Camp Pendleton, California, successfully fired an XCal round against insurgents at 22 miles in the Helmand province of Afghanistan. This was the longest operational shot in history of the 777 and the longest operational barrel artillery shot in history for the Marine Corps. Like other modern systems, the 777 can fire up to 2,500 shells before needing a barrel replaced, so the whole barrel has to come off, and that's probably no easy task. It probably would be down for a little bit. In 2024, Bay announced the opening for the new artillery factory in Sheffield during 2025 to resume production and complete 777 artillery pieces for Ukraine, and to help fulfill orders and fresh titanium cast spare parts from the U.S., supplementing the U.S. parts factory, which also resumed production in 2024. 8 countries have previously expressed interest into fresh unit orders. So, I mean, they're probably getting old, especially since they came out in the early 2000s. A lot of them probably need to be replaced. So the 777A2 has a weight of 9,800 pounds compared to the one it replaced, the M198, which was 16,000 pounds. Emplacement time, 2 minutes. Displacement time, so emplacement, how fast can you get in place and firing, which is 2 minutes. Displacement, 2 minutes and 23 seconds. Terrain trafficability, 83%. And numbers, the amount of C-130 can hold is 2, and crew is 5. And then you got your variants, your A2 block 1A software upgrades, additional enhancement, portable inductive artillery fuse setter, and enable Excalibur and precision munitions. The 777ER upgraded, created extended range cannon artillery. And then, where is it? The 777 with Canada, 777C1. All right, then you got your ammunition. You got your XCal rounds, which is a guided artillery shell, which literally has a rocket on the back of it and it has dorsal fins, which is crazy for an artillery piece. And then you got the M1128 projectile, which is bleed artillery, base bleed artillery. I don't know what that means. Fragmentation. Then you got the 1113. This says it does not exist on Wikipedia, so I don't know. And then you got the M549A1, which is a rocket-assisted projectile. And then you got the cluster round from Bofus and Nexton. And then you got your simple like HE rounds and your smoke rounds and stuff like that. HE high explosive. So when it basically depends on how you set it, I would guess. Of course, according to this diagram right here, it has different nose cones on it, so different things. And then its service history in 2008 entered Australia's services and then Brazil's services, with the Navy getting it in 2010. And then, I mean, they're not getting that many. And then you got Canada, who also has it since 2005. India, which I was kind of surprised, has 145, or acquired 145. I don't know how many they have now. It's actually operational. Then you got Ukraine, who got a bunch because of the war, but I mean, they got 100 and something, 101, or 101 have been lost or damaged or captured or destroyed. This shows 55 destroyed, 44 damaged, and 2 captured. And that's only with videographic evidence available, so it could be a lot larger number than that. But the United States provided 8, Canada provided 4, Australia provided 6 of them. So who knows? I sure don't. The United States, M777, we know it succeeded. It's in the Marine Corps and the United States Army. In 2014, they began fielding several upgrades to the 777 Howitzer, including liquid crystal display, LCD display units, software updates, improved system, muzzle sensors, onboard computing, and stuff like that. Probably makes it to have a higher fire rate, I would guess, the more computers you put into it. But when the computer goes down, you're screwed. All right. In the Army, the 18th FA Brigade Airborne at Bragg, North Carolina, was the initial Army test unit for the XM777, which included the 1st and 3rd of the 321st Field Artillery Regiment. The initial prototypes were tested at 1st Battalion, 377th Air Assault Regiment in 1998, and also a unit at the 18th FA Brigade. 2nd Platoon, Bravo Battery, 2nd Battery of the 11th FA Regiment was the first U.S. Army unit to fire the 777 in combat in January of 2008. So pretty soon after it entered service, it was already operational and in combat in support of the Operation Iraqi Freedom. In 2007, the 777 in its A2 configuration assigned to the U.S. Army's 332 1st FA is deployed to Afghanistan in support of OEF in December of 2007 and January of 2008, making it the first U.S. Army unit to utilize the 777 in combat in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. In 2008, the 777 was deployed for testing with the 28 FA Fort Wainwright in Fairbanks, Alaska. In 2008, in Shelby, Mississippi, 108th FA Regiment, 28th Infantry Division of the Pennsylvania National Guard became the first field artillery unit of the National Guard to fire the 777. In 2007, 2 soldiers from the 319th FA Regiment were killed from a breech explosion, and other members of the gun crew were injured after attempting the 777 at a ISIL mortar position in northern Iraq. Multiple firing incidents have occurred during training of the 777, including fatal one in 2014 at 332-1 FA, and previously Marines from Fort Lejeune, also at Fort Bragg. The U.S. Army announced it's buying Swedish Bofors 155 bonus round as an interim system as a result of requiring a phasing out cluster munitions from artillery shells complying with the policy, less than 1% of UXO from non-unilateral explosives. The bonus has 2 sensor fused munitions deployed by the 155 carrier projectile that scans the ground targets and fires explosives foreign penetrators down at the ground. The system has been tested from the 777 Howitzers. That's cool. 3rd Cavalry Regiment deployed the 777A2 guns in Iraq on the border of Syria in 2018 and 2019 to support the Syrian Democratic Forces at the Battle of Baghouz. I don't know, however you say that. An ultimate success, Operation Capture of al-Baghouz Fagwani, final town held by ISIL. So then in the Marine Corps in 2005, the 11th, 3rd Battalion, 11th Marines, based in 29 Palms, became the first Marine unit to field the 777. 580 guns were supplied to the Marines, 421 to the U.S. Army and National Guard. In 2016, 200 Marines and 4 A2 howitzers, 777 A2 howitzers from the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit set up at Firebase Bell, officially the Karasor counterfire complex near Iraqi town, supporting Iraqi Army's Mosul offense. The firebase was only 24 kilometers, 15 from ISIL-controlled territory. The Marine howitzer fired every day in support of Iraqi movements using high explosive rounds, smoke, and illume rounds. So illume rounds lights up the sky. They were relieved by Army soldiers after roughly 60 days after firing more than 2,000 rounds. Man, I bet that was loud. In 486 fire missions. 486 fire missions in 60 days is an incredible amount. In 2017, the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit was deployed to Syria to provide artillery support with 777 forces and support to eject ISIL forces. Then you got its combat history, Iraqi war, war in Afghanistan, military intervention against ISIL, and then China and India skirmishes in Ukraine, obviously, China and India, with it being on India's side. I mean, I'm surprised they used artillery pieces to fire at China, but to each its own. So then current operators, the Australian Army has had 54, reduced to 48 after 6 were donated to Ukraine. And then Canada has 33 currently, with some being donated. India has 145, and the United States has 291 in the Army, and the National Guard has 518 systems. And then the U.S. Marine Corps has 481 systems with a total fleet of 999 for both service branches. I don't know what that even means. In 2022, 108 Marine Corps systems were donated to Ukraine, and then Ukraine has all those that I just rattled off. And then you got Colombia, who was surprised, will obtain in the future. And then you have potential being the UAE. And that is all for the M777. What a cool gun that would be to shoot. I bet that is loud. But that is all I got for y'all today.